Hi guys, sorry for the wait. We're ready to start. So welcome to the Scan to BIM for AEC Professionals webinar. It's specifically to do with the Revit Workflow, and it's being presented by me, Alyssa Jayers, and I'm a BIM specialist at Baker Baines. I do have Shweb who will pop in now and then just to give us a little bit more detail with regard to the scanning information, because he's our office scanner person. So Shweb can say hi.
Hi everyone.
Okay, that's Shweb. All right, so let's go. Okay, so the usual, who is Baker Baines? In case it's your first time for our webinar, just a little few details with regards to who we are and what we do, some of the services that we do provide. And we're a gold partner of Autodesk. We also have a training center in our offices with regard to any training of the software that you might require. Okay, along with the list, which is a vast list, so I'm not gonna go through it. Okay, but at Baker Baines, we believe in designing a better world, in delivering a better project or product, and in technological adoption to produce better results, or for you to produce better results. How do we do this? We do this by having the best team and the best people. I do think that Baker Baines has a few of the best consultants in-house. We also have a superior customer experience and a support desk, and also have a blended learning approach. Okay, so basic agenda for today would be, we want to quickly touch on what is Scan to BIM in case you're not too sure what that means. And then we'll look at the software that you probably have available but don't even know about it. And so that's looking at the AEC collection, and we'll take a look at the Scan to BIM workflow that's suggested and specifically to a Revit, and we'll look at a mini demonstration. We'll then go on to look at the technology that's related to 3D scanning with regard to indoor and your outdoor solutions. And then we have an event coming up, which we can quickly just touch on the details for that as well. All right, so what is Scan to BIM? So quickly, just on scanning itself and not Scan to BIM, in case you're not too sure what that is. 3D scanning or reality capture is basically being able to use technology to scan an environment, and this can then be captured into software, and which kind of looks something like the image that you see in front of you. So obviously Autodesk does have a host of software available for us to actually register and capture the details of that scan, as well as use that and import that information into other pieces of software. So if we look at the generic uses, some of it is industrial site layouts, building renovations, energy modeling. The little list there that you see on the left is some of the uses that you could use it for. Okay, and some of the challenges that I've faced on construction projects that has allowed us to implement the solution of 3D scanning is design errors caused by inaccurate existing conditions. And when you do capture those existing conditions on site and try to transfer that information back into your software, there are obviously human error. We make a couple of mistakes and we're not capturing the information accurately. So that would be one of the challenges. Another challenge would be implementing BIM for renovation projects. There's a lot of with regard to renovation projects, there's a lot of rework or kind of measure up that you have to do on site and then transfer that information onto software. So that does take up a lot of time as well, and again, accuracy with regard to that. Another challenge would be to the monitoring of building progress can be captured by your 3D scanner, because you might not have access to that site, or you want to see how far along that site is or the construction is with regard to completion. So you might use 3D scanning in that regard. A few business benefits of 3D scanning and BIM workflow would be obviously greater cost predictability, improved schedule, fewer errors, optimized design, and better understanding. Okay, so just quickly, what products do I have available? And I'm going to look at the AEC collection, and specifically, and why I've done that is because there are a lot of companies who have the AEC collection available to them and don't realize that the software is there, but for that reason aren't really using it or implementing it. So if the software is available to you in your company, you might as well take full advantage of the benefits of this. To give you a little understanding, this is kind of the software that's included in your AEC collection if you have availability to this. And there's a whole bunch and a whole list of software in this. Some of you guys might just know Revit or AutoCAD, or just look at the ones that you kind of know and don't realize there's other pieces of software that you could be using as well. Okay, and within the AEC collection, there is both Revit and Recap Pro, which is the two bits of software that are going to slot into our workflow for Scan to BIM. All right, to give you a better kind of understanding of, this is more of a architectural solution, and there might be engineers out there, but just to give you more of an idea of where the pieces of software would fit in with regard to your construction phases, or just the building phases of your, or the phases of your building. Your Revit obviously will be used from conceptual design down to documentation. And something like Recap Pro would fit in where a systematic design phase would be. So that fits in very nicely with Revit as well. Okay, Scan to BIM workflow, okay, a Revit workflow. Just quickly want to chat about the workflow with this, but I might just swap it over to Shui.
Okay, cool. Afternoon, guys. So in terms of the Scan to BIM workflow, we generally have 3 steps, as you can see on the screen. The first one is capture, so you can either use drones for photogrammetry, because Recap Pro actually has a photogrammetry processing engine built into it. And then the second one that you're seeing below the drone is actually a scanner. So that one there is normally a Leica, which is predominantly used in architecture for doing the scans in interior scans. And then you've got the one below that. It's a bit old school, but it's more rugged in terms of terrain capture. So you'll do the capturing using photo and laser technology, whichever one is applicable. Thereafter, you'll take the scan that you have on the machine, and then we'll process it using Recap Pro. So Recap Pro will take that raw data, process it into a 3D model, and then after that, you can import it into your authoring software like Revit, Civil 3D, Inventor, and so on. And then, of course, if you want to go and actually capture or recapture the as-built information, you can do a scan again and then import it over your existing model, and you can actually pick up the discrepancy. So it makes the modeling aspect much more quicker in terms of as-built generation once you have your Revit model. And yeah, that's just the 3 phases that you will work through into a conventional project workflow.
Okay, cool. So with regard to building scanning workflow, exactly what Shreb said, just slotting our pieces and our bits of software into that. Obviously, the scanning technology can be done or used by a host of different companies. But when it comes to registering the scan data, we would suggest Autodesk Recap or Recap Pro rather, and then you could then use that point cloud model, which is generated from Recap, into Revit, and then build off of that model. Okay, so just a few outcomes with regard to Recap and versus Revit, and a little differentiation there between Recap and Recap Pro. So I just want to quickly touch on that. So there is Recap and Recap Pro. So there is a slight difference between the two bits of software. The one being, I think the first one is free. So Recap is free, and that just allows you basic viewing and editing of the reality capture data. The Recap Pro allows for the registration and stitching and the cleanup of scans as well, and extra features on top of that. So with regard to Recap, you receive data of the existing as-built conditions in form of what we call a point cloud, which is made up of a whole bunch of tiny little points. And together, putting those points together, it makes up the 3D model image. So we can use this to do measurements and just have this as a point of reference within the Recap software, and obviously walk around that point cloud as well. In Revit specifically, we could then import that Recap file or the point cloud file and use this to model our, or use this as our shell if we had an existing environment or building that we wanted to just reference. We can use that as a reference and then build on top of that. We can also do things like measure within Revit to give us certain bits of information that we might need. Okay, so I'm quickly just going to jump to the software. Okay, I've got Recap open, and I'm going to hand over to Shweb.
Okay, everyone, so this is more or less what you're seeing on the screen is Recap Pro, and believe it or not, if I zoom in here, you can see these are actually pixels or dots, like Melissa said, and this is more or less the product of a process point cloud. As you can see, it's very, very detailed. The color is really great. You can define objects because of the outline. The quality of the scan is great. But another thing that's really cool with the feature is something called the real view. So real view combines photogrammetry and point clouds. And what it does is it switches it from a normal point cloud density to the actual photo. Now look at this. It's much more easier to reference stuff. You can take a look around. Also, we've got a lot of users actually linking this to VR and stuff like that, which is quite remarkable. But as you can see, it's much more easier. The great thing with the software is that there's quite a little bit of buttons, so you can't really get lost. Okay, and as you can see here, it's currently in the free mode. So normally what happens is if you have Recap Pro installed, you'll have maybe 2 more extra buttons here that will help you in terms of different types of functionality and stuff like that. But just to give you an example, we can actually pick up measurements from this. So believe it or not, if I had to just maybe take a measurement like that, you see it gives you the measurements. It gives you the X coordinate, the Y coordinate, as well as the elevation being a Z. And the cool thing about this is you can either keep it on, you can delete stuff, you can delete it. Alternatively, you can even add attachments to it. So if I wanted to add something to this, I can even hide it, like you can see here, it's gone. But you can add images. So in architecture, if you've got a specific table spec or furniture spec that you're using for space planning, you can actually attach that spec to this, so the person that's viewing the model can actually know where to get it from. And what you're seeing here is the actual positions where the scans were placed. So it's not a floating orb or something that you might get freaked out with. That's just the scan position. So as you can see, the point of view from the scanner was more or less that. Panning, the functions are exactly the same with your normal software. And then, of course, you've got a plan view here that will actually give you the position of the scan relative to the building that you placed. Okay, this was quite a small scan, so you don't have so many dots here, or you might not be able to see them because I'm not zoomed in. but generally you would see the positioning in plan view, so it's quick for quick reference. In terms of the colors, you can more or less customize it differently, but again, you will have more functionality in terms of the full Recap Pro. So if you want to go old school or black and white in photos, by all means you can go way back there. But if you want to colorize in terms of the actual points itself, you can do an elevation scan. Okay, so what this does, it bands it according to different types of elevation ranges. Of course, you can edit this if you like, but again, this is just a quick snapshot of what you can do with it. Another common one used is intensity. We use this a lot in mining, so you can actually pick up the heat elevations and stuff like that, depending on what you like. Otherwise, normally just keep it in RGB. In terms of the display, we can actually pixelate this much more, as you can see there. The bigger it is, if you're going to go Super Mario, I mean, you can actually get pixel like that. Alternatively, keep it clean and keep it more or less 1 to 2 recommended based on experience. So there's other functions here that I'm not going to really get into at the moment, but the functionality is very, very simple, as you can see here. So what happens is once this is processed here, we have different types of options. So we can save it as a combined RCP. RCP is a recap file that's native, which can be imported into other Autodesk software and also other different types of software. You can export this or share it depending on what you need to your Autodesk Recap account online. So you can publish it, share someone the link of the actual model, and they can just view it online, which is quite cool. And then, of course, you can attach different types of images. Again, you'll see snapshots and stuff. You can normally take that to the Recap Pro version. And then, of course, in terms of Navisworks, if you have certain objects, you can actually import it in here. But generally, what happens is you export this to an RCP file, and then from there, when you bring it into Revit, you can actually do your measurements off there. Alternatively, the biggest function it uses is for relative positioning. So if you've got an existing building and you need to model it, you can actually crop certain regions depending on what you're using. You can use it, I call this the pizza icon, but you can actually use this to segment your scans into a much more easier way of reading it. And then, for example, if you're designing that wall or you want to take measurements of the in Revit, with the point cloud, it can be a bit messy because there's like millions of points literally. So you can segment that so you only see this, and then you can start modeling in here. Once you've done your Revit modeling in here, you can probably toggle that off, switch that on. So there is a systematic way of actually using Recap. And the big misconception is if you do the scan, you've got the model. And unfortunately, we're not there yet. There are some technologies that, like ClearEdge and stuff, that actually do that. But at the moment, once a scan is processed, you import that, and then from here, it's basically you tracing, if I can make it simply, your model. So yeah, that's just a quick rundown on Autodesk Recap. I'll check back in with you later.
Cool, thanks, Shreb. So I'm just going to minimize this, and we were having some problems with our software earlier, so what I'm going to do is open it in the background and just continue with our presentation and hope for the best. Okay, so I'm going to open up the Revit so that we can see what it looks like in there. In the meantime, let's just continue with the rest of our slides. Okay, so just quickly on the technology side of it. So, I mean, obviously there's technology built for both indoor and outdoor, depending on the environment. There's different scanners to use, and you would obviously need some guidance when it comes to that. So just giving you two of the brands that we have worked with. We can just quickly see what those do. So I'm going to start with the first one, which is Leica BLK360, which is more for indoor, and I'm going to give it over back to Shreb, who's actually done scans with the scanner.
Okay, cool. So this is the actual BLK360. It's popularly used by architects for interior design. It's really cool because it can literally fit into your laptop bag. It's very small. It comes with a foldable tripod. So what you're looking at, that black shape there, it's literally that, maybe half of it that you see now, but It's a very, very small scanner. It's positioned on a tripod where it's fixed on, and then from there it actually oscillates and takes a lot of pictures, and then it does, with laser technology, pick up the scan points per position. So you get your X, Y, Z like you just saw just now on Recap, and it picks up the origin point by switching the actual machine on. So it's quite clever for a really small, compact machine. And again, we've used it a lot for interior scanning, and it's quite impressive. The picture quality is great, and it goes up to 360,000 scans per second. And also, you can set the different type of modes. So if you're doing a quick scan, you can do it low. Medium is a bit in between. That's the most popular one used. And then, of course, high quality is simply high. So small, medium, high, and that's as easy as it gets to use the machine. There is some procedure that you would have to follow, like in terms of practice and how to get the scan as accurate as possible. But there's a lot of other factors in terms of accuracy per millimeter, what your objective is, those type of things. But in a nutshell, the scan is very simple to use. Scanner. You don't have to be a pro at it. I mean, all you got to do is just find out how it works, just like any other technology, and you're good to go. Yeah, but that's in a nutshell what I've just said now is here. The cool thing is it connects to an iPad. So while you're doing the scan, it actually, you can do the registration part of it while the other scanning or the next segment is continuing. So as you're going along, you're getting your data processed, and once it's done, you can transfer a stitch model to Autodesk Recap, and then from there you can use it. So it's quick, easy to use, very lightweight, not that rugged, and it's actually perfect for architectural applications. Okay, so now we're getting a bit bigger and rougher, if I can put it that way. We've got another one called Topcon GLS 2000, and we normally use it on site quite a bit. So that's how it looks. As you can see, it's much bigger than the other one. It's a bit heavier, if I can be honest. But we've got different types of modes and ranges that it comes in. Again, short, medium, and long range. The short range, I think, goes up to about 150 meters. Medium range is about 350 meters, and the large range goes up to 500. Also, the points per second is quite impressive. I think it's 120,000 starting off. But if you look at it, it's very, very rugged. So it's used a lot in construction, site layouts, to capture road alignments, road edges, urban planning, also architectural planning in terms of your actual layouts, make it look as aesthetic as possible. Works on the same principle and is also integratable with our Autodesk Recap. And yeah, the file sizes there can get a bit big depending on the terrain scanning and capturing you use, but it's the preferred choice in terms of construction because of its IP rating and stuff like that. It's been used for quite a lot of cool stuff, as you can see, for plants, as you the picture suggests. You can get a lot of good accuracy for plant maintenance, pipe positions, those type of things. And recently I have seen on the web that they've used it to do a scan of a pyramid face. So I'm just waiting for the data on that. So it's going to be quite cool, especially the hieroglyphics on there, even though I can't read them. But it'll be quite cool to actually pick up the detail because a lot of scanning equipment has actually uncovered a lot of things that could not be seen by the naked eye. And it's quite interesting in terms of the amount of detail that it can do. So yeah, those are the two options that we actually have. There's also other options that you can use. However, they all integrate with Autodesk Recap, so it's no problem.
Okay, just quickly on our events that's coming up, I thought it'd be a good place to just let you guys know that there isn't a Scan to BIM event that's held on the 17th of October at that time, and from 9 to 11. The venue is still being confirmed. But basically there will be, so this webinar was just a summary of a lot of what's going to happen on there. So if you have any questions, I mean, join us. It's always good to upskill you and your team with regard to the new technology that's coming up and what you could be doing, and be the kind of the leading companies and leading architects or engineers in these processes as well.
Yeah. So we're gonna have a look and see if our computer is kind of behaving today. But if not, please join us for our events because it's literally gonna go into this workflow in detail. Gonna be with the awesome Melissa from Architectural Space. I'm gonna cover the scan part, and even though it's as brief as you can see it now, but in the event we can actually look at how you import the scan, what entails in terms of the registration. Once you process the model, how you can import it into Revit, and you'll actually see the model that we scan versus the actual scan because we've got good comparisons on there. Um, and yeah, I think this is just going to be like a teaser. We don't want to give away too much. But yeah, let's not please don't give away too much. But you can give them a quick maybe rundown in terms of how the process works. So over to you, sir.
Cool. So it seems like our software isn't bailing out on us again. So that's great. And this is just, I've just imported obviously the point cloud. And this is just a very basic template that I use from Revit. I'm on level 1, and if anybody is a Revit user out there, you would know that the view range would help with regard to where you're cutting in terms of this point cloud, and the view depth will control what you see further than that. So you would obviously set your view range to see what you want to cut through and what you want to actually see from the point cloud itself. But let's just take a look at some of the views as well. So I see there's an elevation here that we can check out that there is an elevation being generated off of this point cloud. It's not much right now because we used to use the sample project off of the recap application, but you can generate your elevations, and let's even take a look at that section that I just drew through as well. So just going to wait for that to load. Okay, that's a basic section of that area, and obviously you can model your elements in there to kind of be placed in context of this existing condition or building that you see in front of you. So quickly just going to place something in floor plan. I've just got, for example, a component. Okay, basic component you can place in your walls and do your additions to this if you require it in that kind of regard. But I've just placed in that Revit family, and let's just maybe switch to our 3D view and see what that looks like. It's not just the table there. Okay, so I've used my section box and I just cut through the top of the point cloud. Okay, as you can see, okay, little dots, little points, which make up this 3D, and that helps us view a lot of our project in terms of what is existing and what's been captured, which is quite cool. Okay, so another thing to maybe just talk about would be that you're obviously working with points here and not the photo image that you saw in Recap. So you would have to obviously have your point cloud snaps on so that you can snap to different points in this file in case you would need to measure something, for instance. So I'm just using the measure tool, and I could just snap to those points as you see there in front of you. And I'm just going to zoom in. Okay, let's wait for it to load a little bit. Okay, so that's me just, using this to now measure up and do what I need to in this file. Okay, so I'm going to switch back to the presentation. Okay, let's just look at a summary, a quick summary through this. Okay, we looked at scan to BIM and what were the benefits and challenges of this. Okay, a lot of that came down to accuracy, and if anybody's been on site measuring an existing building would know that if you miss a measurement, you have to go back to that site, and if that site is not very close to your company office, that makes things a bit difficult. So this scan is also used as a point of reference in case there's something you forgot or a photo you probably missed or something you didn't measure up. So scan to BIM would be helpful with those kind of things. We also talked about the software that might have available to you, so it's worth checking out what you have in your company, or if you want to maybe check out Recap before purchasing a Recap Pro, you're welcome to do that as well. Then we looked at the basic workflow, which is 3 C's that I kind of summarize that as, which is capture, compile, and convert that into BIM. And then we looked at what the different technology that we do kind of work with already in our office, which is indoor versus outdoor scanning with Topcon and Leica. So I'm going to give you guys a few minutes in case you have any questions for us that you might want to ask. So I'm going to give you guys a few minutes. I'm also going to probably send out the invitation to the Scan to BIM event after this webinar. Or maybe I can just quickly grab it now while we're on here and we're waiting for you guys' questions. Okay, I'm going to include that in the handouts for the webinar so you can grab that invite. And I'm going to give you guys a few minutes for questions.
Yeah, please come and check us out. It'll be cool to meet the people that are in the industry doing the designs and stuff like that. Plus, we're pretty chill, so please come. It will be nice to actually interact with you. So.
And it's exciting to also see what kind of projects you guys are working on, and for us to see how we can help you better that project or adopt this new technological solution in your office as well. So I don't see any questions, so I'm just gonna end it there, and you're welcome to email me if you do have any other questions and concerns that you maybe never thought of right now. But thank you so much for joining our webinar. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a good Friday.